Inspirasi Inforia Islami. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa ashabi ajmain. Welcome to another episode of Open Forum, and Alhamdulillah, we are with you inshallah this week again. And thank you to all of you IKIM radio listeners who are with us this Sunday afternoon. And as we know, last week we have started the new season with a discussion on a very important topic, which is on the topic issues on mental health. What does Islam have to say? And again, we have with us in the studio, we have yang berbahagia Datuk Dr. Azizan Baharuddin, the Director General of IKIM. Assalamualaikum, Datuk.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Puan Eni.
All right. Thank you for being with us again in the second part of our very important discussion on this particular issue. And as you know that we are in a situation or in a condition whereby, you know, mental health is becoming a very important aspect that we must look at and we must discuss in length, and also to make it a very important focus, not just among the health practitioners on this field, but also so that the society know what can be done, how should they assess themselves, and then the impact of the current pandemic of COVID-19 upon their mental health. So Datuk, last week we talked about a few of the top aspect of this particular issue. We talked how the numbers are worrying in terms of how it is affecting not just in Malaysia but also globally. Mental health is another important dimension that need to be stressed. Even the World Health Organization, like countries to look at this dimension on the impact of COVID-19 upon the mental health. And we also talked about the Islamic perspective, and I believe that IKIM, being an institute that looks at the angle of Islamic perspective on many issues, would like to further discuss on this. I thought maybe you can recap with our listeners what we have talked about, especially on what does Islam have to say on this.
Thank you, Puan Eni. My colleague, our colleague, Puan Haja Maslina and her team at the radio station, and also our friends outside there. Your good self. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Salam.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asyrafil anbiya wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa ashabi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. As you so rightly pointed out, we are a member of society. And I think especially in Islam, the jama'ah is never separable from any one of us, from each one of us. We are a single unity in terms of our being, in terms of our well-being especially, beginning with our immediate surroundings, our family, our neighbors, our society, and also country, and so on, until we actually have to embrace the whole of humanity. And this is the spirit of the Quran al-Karim. So mental health, very quickly, we will have the impression that people who suffer mental health, usually one of the conditions that they suffer is loneliness, perceived or real, right? Secondly, we also touched on this last week, I think, a lot of the damage which leads to mental health issues is actually at the physiological level, beginning with bad language, foul language, bad messages, negativities. And we spoke a little bit last week how the brain structure actually changes. How fantastic is that? I mean, like, if we do not understand this previously, we need to know that now. We need to know that just as we need oxygen now to breathe, what happens if you keep your nose longer than the body can withstand, and no oxygen comes into your lungs, and then you will die. So similarly or analogously, the brain, the being, the soul, the heart requires positivities. And maybe in the Islamic context, we can talk about these positivities in two levels. We can speak about the Islamic inputs in terms of the care, the professional care especially, towards people with mental health issues. Secondly, we can touch upon the personal habits, the personal disciplines, the personal knowledge, the personal amal or practices that the Muslim should do, whether or not he has mental health issues. I think to be really harsh about this, or to be really exact about this, each and every one of us, if we measure, do a test in the spectrum of 1 to let's say 10, maybe many of us have 0.1% at least of mental health issue. But
Yeah.
then, yeah, that's right. Let's not forget, because in Islam, in Quran, Allah explains that we have been created so that we are to be tested. What does test mean? Stress, any stress. So I think one of the first things we need to say when we talk about Islamic perspective of mental health is to demystify the concept of mental health itself.
Yeah.
Do not quickly conclude that the moment you feel uncomfortable, I'm stressed, therefore I have a mental health issue. No, it's not as simple as that. So I think this age and times, people have often made the comments that it is an age where there is so much information but not enough knowledge. Too much knowledge but not enough wisdom.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of knowledge at the tips of our fingers, but then again, do we have the wisdom to sift through and to actually take what we really need and leave the rest? And then the concept of waste. I think much of our time, our life, our energy, our feelings are wasted on issues that are of secondary importance.
Yeah.
Reality. So that in itself is a kind of new source of mental health problem, actually. So in the time period that we have, we can't go through the whole spectrum of issues, but just at the what you call it official level, we understand that mental health can be treated today through two modes. One, the spiritual. Second, of course, the medical, psychiatric perspective. And in many countries, especially in countries like UK, Australia, Canada, where you have now quite a substantial Muslim migrant population, maybe they've stayed there so long already, second generation, third generation, they are no more considered migrants, for example, but they have this cultural niche, cultural need to be understood by the professional mental health caregiver to understand that they are Muslims and they have certain beliefs, and that there are certain cultural elements in their belief system, in their daily lives, which if the mental health caregiver can understand, can make use of. So what we're talking about here, things like salat, things like zikir, things like making dua to Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. So this is accepted already. No more taboo. Whereas previously there was a kind of tension.
Yeah.
As if when we talk about conventional mental health care, you cannot mix it up with religious elements. So right now, alhamdulillah, all over the world almost, you don't have to be apologetic when you have mental health issues. But then again, let's focus on maybe, because we are not professionals ourselves, let us share a little bit more on that second level just now. That at the personal level, what can you do to actually, first of all, recognize what you're feeling, have knowledge about that in terms of how Islam looks at it. So the way Islam looks at it is that the self, also called the nafs, AFS, the nafs, actually has three types of, what do you call it, subdivisions, if you like. Yeah. One is the nafs amara. This is the nafs, this is the self that actually will react, will give knee-jerk reactions to conditions around it. Oftentimes it's a commanding kind of feeling, urge inside the person. And the person is not careful, the nafs amara, especially in times of stresses, when it doesn't get enough support from people, when the individual doesn't enough love from his family, for example. So the person can react in very negative ways, which leads to mental health. Yeah? and last week we spoke about the characteristics of mental health. You can't
Yeah.
sleep, you can't think properly, you can't work, lack of productivity and all that. So such a person should understand that you have to go to the next level, which is the nafs lawama. Nafs lawama is the self that actually corrects itself, reviews what it has been going through and how it has been reacting. Is it proper that when someone says something ill about him or herself, they just react in a spontaneous negative manner, for example, hence triggering, like we said just now, negative neurotransmitters in the brain, which will affect the person even more negatively. And then the next, of course, is nafsu matma'innah, where you are at peace, where when you are under trial and tribulations, you understand that this is in a sense under the knowledge or under the auspices of Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. Allah sees everything and hears everything. Things that you don't say, Allah knows. Things that, by the same token, things that people don't say, Allah knows. So in Islam, we always speak about having good, positive thinking about the trials and tribulations given to us. We have books called Tahzan, for example. I think many of our readers have heard about this book, and it's written by Dr. Aid Al-Qarni. Jamaslina, we were informed by our friends at the radio that Dr. Aid came even a few years back. So in other words, like you said earlier on, IKIM, especially the radio, has for a long time been looking at this topic of how does Islam actually address mental issues. And like we also mentioned last week, and I think this is worth sharing. Yeah, Jamaslina herself, our producer of this program, she has conducted programs Kembara Shifa, healing journey. Can I translate it like that? So where she combines the inputs of a religious teacher, an ustaz, and ex-patients, mental health patients, and a medical professional. So this is the way forward. So when we say Islamic perspective vis-a-vis mental health, we speak about harmonizing the various ways of tackling issues. But before we move on to something else, possibly we can say that if we want to summarize, Annie, we can say that the connection between mental health and Islam can be explained in terms of 4 items. Firstly, spiritual resilience. Islam actually offers a spiritual sanctuary for Muslims to live a peaceful life by using their inner strengths and having a strong relationship with the ultimate power of Allah, being optimistic by purifying their feelings and not waiting for outside events to improve. Islam acknowledges the importance of spiritual status as an interior power that can be exercised to have a calm mind, healthy consciousness, positive thoughts. Now, that is quite a mouthful, right? But in all those sentences just now, lay what we said earlier, which is the personal theology of the person. The person must increase his knowledge of the du'as, of the tabi'at, the characteristics such as simple things like this one we can source from stories from the times of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Once a friend, Rasulullah and the Sahaba was in the mosque, another Sahaba walked in and he said, this is a person who is a member of Jannah, and the other Sahaba says, how so, right? And they discovered that the secret of his worthy of Jannah is that before going to sleep every day, he forgives everyone. So it sounds very simple, right? But you try it at the feelings level, at the emotional level. What? Forgive someone who has actually, almost killed you or your family, for example. Someone who has stolen all of your wealth, for example, and all of this, right? So this is something which I think Islam has to offer the world, because the conventional world, because of its failure to understand the limitations of science. It has atomized everything. It has physicalized everything. So when it comes to emotions, they are they are in the dark as to how to express it, and let alone how to prove it. So this is the ghaib, feelings, the feelings of human beings, right? These are things of the belonging to the realm of the ghaib, the unseen, right?
Yeah.
But you do understand emotions. You feel it. So feeling is something that is very tricky. You cannot measure it fully, but it's there and it's very, very powerful. And modern science will testify to that. What science can say is when you're angry, adrenaline is pumped inside your body a lot. When you're happy, it's caused by the hormone called oxytocin, for example, serotonin. So how does oxytocin, serotonin, these happy hormones, how does it come out? Because of the feelings. How do you get the feelings? By you controlling it. Who controls it? And this is the self nafs mutmainnah. So some people say it's a mysterious thing. No, it's not really that. Well, it may be a complicated mystery,
Yeah.
but that we speak now, it sounds like it's completely doable, right? And then Muslims have rituals like what do you call it, fasting.
Yeah.
What is the virtue of fasting? To help you restrain yourself, restrain your nafs, the lowly ones, and so on and so on. And then the connection between Islam and mental health also can be spoken about in terms of the role of patience, sabr. Okay? Islam attaches great importance to patience, and it is the focus of about 200 verses of the Quran and referred to indirectly in many others. So patience is a virtue that enables Muslims to proceed towards worthy goals, undeflected by adverse circumstances or repeated provocations. Patience, sabr. Again, in English, it sounds like, okay, be patient, Puan Annie, be patient. Everybody patient, please. In conventional language, it's like, depending on the situation, it's so tiny. Doesn't mean anything. But lo and behold, okay, in terms of tribulations, is a real restrainer of catastrophes. Let's say between spouses, right? Spouses and mental health issues often arise out of bad relationship between spouses, for example.
Yeah.
Imagine you don't have sabr. And with sabr actually comes the word syukur, gratefulness. Don't look at what you don't have, look at what you have. And this is connected to the word nikmah. And look at the millions of cells in your body. Some people, they don't like to listen to this. You're going into a trajectory. You're refusing to understand what I'm going through. Now you don't understand. This is the nafsu amara, lawama, mutmainnah at play. So, and then what happens actually at the end of the day? Who wins? The person who can restrain himself, and that is sabr. Sabr means restrain, and ultimately, and it's not yahoo yahoo. Okay, it's not a yahoo yahoo situation. It's painful, right? It's painful, but what is the reward after that? Peace and no mental health problems. Okay. And then the evil eye. Now we understand that in the Quran Al-Karim we have Surah Al-Falaq, for example, right?
Yeah.
So maybe people don't like to talk about this, but it does happen that people have bad intention upon others, and they do resort to certain practices that we won't go into at the moment.
Yeah.
But Islam does accept the fact that there are people who do these kinds of sihir, if you like, and they call upon creations of Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala, like the jinns, shaitan, and all of that. So of course, this is not in the textbooks, maybe too much. Yeah? But then again, without us actually putting it out of proportion, it does happen also, and it has to be considered. But then again, is there a way out? Yes, definitely there's a way out, because for every illness, Allah has given you cure, right? And then I think like Surah An-Nas, Surah Al-Falaq, if you read those, and this has been taught to us by the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, when do you practice these ayats and all that, so that you can be physically and hence spiritually, emotionally, mental speaking, you will be protected, right? And then I think, just to finish up that point just now, there are many excellent verses in the Quran Karim which is like pouring water onto parched ground, you know, like it's as if you read these verses, for example, Surah 3, ayat 173, Allah is sufficient for us and He is an excellent trustee. Okay, so as they say, let go and let God be in charge. So we believe that Allah is closer to us than our jugular vein, and that He is all-knowing, and He is just, and He is most merciful. So with that in mind, we place our worries and fears with Him and really see that there is someone taking care of you. Believe that. Believe that. This is Rukun Iman. Believe in the Quran is Rukun Iman. So that one particular verse, and there's so many verses, maybe I can just read one last one. Indeed, after hardship, there is ease. Quran 94, ayat 6. Yeah? Allah has spoken about being tested in the Quran. So this world is for tests, and with these tests, we will grow as people and grow closer to Him. He has also promised that there will be ease after every hardship. So look forward to that and know that the situation you are in won't be forever, that you will get through it, and that it will be amazing when you do. So again, back to the pandemic. Some people count the days. I think the last time I read somebody's counting is it's about what, almost 500 days or something. Yeah?
Yeah.
So imagine you doing that every day. What do you doing to yourself, right? So when people commit suicide, I think what happens is the tawfiq and the hidayah is disallowed by that person to enter him or herself. So the Quran also speaks about absolute darkness, extreme darkness. There's a surah in the Quran Al-Karim that speaks about deep ocean. In the deep ocean, layer upon layer of darkness, such that in the darkest part of the ocean, you put out your hand, you can't even see your hand. So the light does not go to the deep ocean at all. So Allah gives imageries for us to understand. So people, I think, who do commit, with due respects, yeah, when we talk about this, we're not doing it in a flimsy or uncaring manner. We are sensitive to families and all of that. What we're saying is we should help each other. Those who have the knowledge, those who have the skills to help others, they should not stop. Yeah. So then maybe we want to speak about the things.
Datuk, what you have said about having spiritual resilience and having conviction actually with regard to if you say dua, we have to have conviction towards the dua that Allah will answer our dua. This is one aspect that we must realize, and understanding that when you said about being syukur, you have said it's not just about looking what we don't have, but look at what we have, and do not compare ourselves with with people who are better in terms of wealth or opportunities, but then also to look at those people who are adversely affected by so many other things. So Datuk, we're going to talk about maybe on this individuals. We know that there are individuals who deny that they do face problems of mental health, and we have communities which look at mental health as last week we said as taboo, because maybe culturally we know that there are, during those old days, people who face mental health problems are are being cast away, being segregated from societies in a very way. So how do we as an individual, if we face mental health problems, what should we do? And as a community, how should we provide support to those people affected by this problem?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think that's a very valid question, because after we've spoken about mental health, what causes it, and what are the characteristics, what happens when we actually suffer through the distresses, and there are many stresses we can be talking about, and people talk about panic attacks, major depressive disorder. You have all the technical knowledge, right, about the mental health situation. But at the end of the day, what happens is that this individual or these individuals, like we said earlier on, we are part of a jama'ah, we're part of a group, right? So this is another, to put it quite extremely, but we are not trying to be over exaggerating. This is the problem today, isn't it? There's a kind of breakdown in terms of relations especially between neighbors, in the society. Say without sounding like we are being critical or anything, just how we face this pandemic. There's a lot of comments. We need to be united, isn't it? There has to
Yeah.
be a common front in attacking the issue, addressing the issue. But we learn, I think, especially in Malaysia, we learn, at first it was a certain committee in charge, and then later on we move on. We realize that the various ministries, the various agencies have to work together.
Yeah.
They have to be in a lock-in situation where they have to be communicating with one another. The question of, is it life or livelihood? Why is that question there to begin with? It's because of maybe we don't want to use the word failure because we don't want to be negative. Maybe because we need to be further enhanced in terms of our capacity to balance the two, isn't it? Life and
Yeah.
livelihood. And along the way, what needs to happen? There has to be sabr. There has to be patience, right? There has to be resilience, right? So those personal items we're talking about just now, actually it works at the community level as well. So for me, if we say that, let's say in a certain family, there is somebody, let's talk about community and family level. Somebody is really in distress, and so the first thing the family must learn, and the neighbors and the bigger clan, the aunts, the cousins, must learn is that it is a situation. You got to go back to religion, where it is a kind of disease. Break disease into this is lack of ease, EASE, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a disease, and for every problem there's a cause. So why does this insan in the family, maybe our sister or brother, why is he or she like that? Is she worried about money? Is she worried about what? Is she worried about the cancer that she's going through? What is it? So first things first, right? So if you discover the causes of the problem, then the problem stops being a problem,
Yeah.
right? So secondly, by doing that, I think there is no time for tabooing the thing. There's no time to think about stigmatizing people. It happens to this particular family now. You as the onlooker, it might happen to your family. It's like the pandemic now. It's rampant. It's everywhere. No neighborhood is safe. No family is safe. In a sense, we are also humbled now. Remember, first time pandemic broke out. Like if somebody in the neighborhood, he gets the COVID, right? It's like such a taboo, isn't it? Great stigma.
Yeah.
Takut. Don't go near there. That family is like that, and so on.
Even if those who have recovered also face that stigma.
Also face that stigma, right? Correct. Now, do we have time for stigmatizing? No, because people are dropping left, right, and center. Okay. In every agency, not every, lots of groups, clusters, families now are facing it. So you have no time for stigmatizing. So again, taboo, stigmas are all imagination, part of the imagination. So can we please correct our imagination? Can we please correct our mental state? I think. Because I think stigma and denying and tabooing, I think it's part of mental health also.
Yeah. True.
And we speak about mental health not just at the individual level, it's also at the community level.
Yeah.
This is what we mean by demystify the word, demystify all the concepts that are involved here. So then, the authority, the community must have centers that address this professionally. Okay, when you say professional, is there, it's sustainable, it receives support from the authorities and all of that. It's very interesting, Annie, when we research this in history, in the Islamic world, even in its early years, we had pioneering approach and concern for mental health and psychiatry. Did we know that the first psychiatric hospitals were founded in Muslim countries? In Baghdad, in the year 705 after Christ, in modern era, during the kingship of Caliph Al-Walid ibn Abdul Malik. In Cairo, in the year 800 AD. In Damascus, in the year 1270 AD. And all these hospitals, they were pioneers in the world. Okay? And they came earlier. The first mental hospitals in the West came only about 500 years later in London, for example. And then there were the kitabs by the Muslim health professionals like Al-Razi, like Ibn Sina. There were famous what do you call it, works, scientific works on the situation, in the Kanun fil Tib, and so on and so on. So that's a different area and branch of knowledge we may want to get into. But what is important is some of the practices that today we take for granted in terms of mental health care is actually in the Islamic mode of taking care. So secondly, I think once we have the system, and in Malaysia we are so lucky, I think we do have through certain hospitals. We have the hospital in Tanjung Rambutan, we have few of those, right? So, but again, the stigma is still there, isn't it? Oh,
Yeah.
this person just came out of Tanjung Rambutan. Just the word Tanjung Rambutan is gone. Like,
Yes.
so I think
Even if you don't live in the hospital.
even if you don't go to the hospital, you just live around Tanjung Rambutan, so you might suffer. So I think again, going back to what we said earlier about the du'as, the practicing of the Quranic verses, practicing of the akhlak of the Rasulullah SAW. It's very interesting. You come across Islamic quotes about politeness, for example.
Yeah.
Politeness. You see, in English, it sounds like so light, so unimportant. But maybe because we are not, English not our mother tongue, I don't know. Maybe we don't know the root words of certain words, right? But in Islam, it's akhlak, right? So
Yeah.
everything boils down to good akhlak. And Rasulullah SAW says, I am sent to this world to improve what? The akhlak of human beings.
Yeah.
So, so if we were to draw a kind of mental map, mind map of mental health, with the word mental health right in the center, so we will be branching into things like akhlak actually.
Yeah.
So bottom line is akhlak is, because remember right at the beginning we're talking about mental health begins with negativities. Where do negativity spring from? From the tongue, right? From the eye, like we said just now, from body languages, right? And of course, physical strength. Some people beat people up, so that that of course undeniably will cause mental health problems. So to the smallest things, from the smallest things like Allah keeps accounts of returning a greeting. Just greeting someone, Assalamualaikum, that is big deal.
Yeah.
And it is a dua, right? And you
Yes.
must realize that you have to return the greeting. We find sometimes people not returning greetings, but because they don't know perhaps. So what we're saying here is that you're talking about community, right? So I think this kind of information must go into the khutbah, this kind of information must go into the radio capsules, radio programs, TV programs. Take it up, take it up, take the issue up, and let people know about this. And the most beloved people to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is the best people who the best people are those who are best in manners. This is Hadith
Yeah.
Al-Bukhari. Right? And the heaviest deeds on your scale on the day of judgment is your good manners. Nothing is weightier on the scale of deeds than one's good manners. Again, Hadith Bukhari and Ahmad. Small gestures of courtesy weigh heavily on our scale of good deeds. Again, the little matters of courtesy that look easy to you and which you take lightly will be very important on the day of judgment. Hadith At-Tirmidhi. Like what? Smiles, like acknowledging people, you know, uh, teaching a child good manners has high reward. Verily, a man teaching his child manners is better than giving one bushel of grain in alms. It's better than sadaqah. Right? Good manners can bring more rewards than nafas and prayers. A believer may achieve the status of one who regularly fasts during the day and spends the night in prayer through his good manners. So if you can't do so many prayers and all of that, you just having good manners, yeah, is very important and will give you rewards. Rude talk brings shame, politeness brings beauty. So rude talk does not bring anything except shame. Modesty and decency decorate wherever they may be. This is Hadith Muslim, Abu Dawud. And so on. Allah hates the one who uses coarse language and foul language, who is the hellfire forbidden to touch, someone who is uh, someone who is good, having good manners, it is forbidden for hellfire to touch him. This is the hadith. And all the things we're reading here, these are all from the hadith. And the Prophet was never rude. So no one should consider himself superior to another. And so on and so on. And then the iman of someone is not perfectified unless he loves another like he loves himself.
Yeah.
Don't you think that the Muslim community should be embracing, practicing, showing all these things? Are we doing that? So as we speak, we speak to ourselves first of all.
It's a reminder for us as well.
Reminder for us, but these are very simple things, and these are some of the things that attract other people to become Muslims actually.
Yeah.
Whereas we who are born Muslims, we don't realize this. We are blinded to all this.
It's a form of dakwah, Datuk, that people don't realize.
Seriously, small matters, small things that matter, yeah. And this is our job today. I mean, you don't have to be a professor with 4 PhDs to be able to be a good da'i.
Yeah.
Having good akhlaq, for heaven's sakes. Yeah. And don't you want Jannah? We hashtag Jannah all over the place, right? But how do we do that? Akhlaq is so critical. And it's the lack of akhlaq that has given rise to the blossoming of mental health issues.
Yes.
Among people who don't know, who don't have tawheed, who don't know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who don't know the nafs, you can forgive them. But you are supposed to know. And if you don't know, get yourself to be in the know now.
Yeah.
Knowledge is everywhere. And like I said, those of us who know a little bit, we should increase some more. And those who are capable of broadcasting it, sharing it, like inshallah, we hope we're trying to do here today, we will do that. So again, like we said earlier, Annie, we speak here not as professionals, practitioners. No, we have avenues for that on our radio program. Yeah, our good friend Puan Haja Masina Ismail, she has special people on board to talk about that. Also our radio too. But here in open forum, I think we need to speak about this in an open manner like this. And in the future, we can have time, we can have opportunity to let others be part of the conversation. We should be sharing and we should be asking each other questions. And after all, deen is an-nasihah. Religion is advice, mutually giving advice to each other. Wallahu alam.
Thank you, Datuk, for what you have shared. I think it's very important for us to understand. You've said about good akhlaq. And sometimes akhlaq is not just about how you portray, or how you act in front of another people. But then the social media users, especially the netizens, they also must play a role and be empathetic towards people who have, who facing this problem. So with that, Datuk, thank you again for your contribution to this particular topic, issues on mental health. What does Islam have to say? And inshallah, we'll invite you to talk about other relevant issues on this topic. Thank you to my producer, Haja Mazina Ismail, and also to our technology, the digital technology team who's helping us with this recording. And with that, Datuk, once again, thank you. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.